What's up, guys? This is Corey with the Dirt City Gym, and today I'm back with y'all doing a Pokemon VGC analysis. So, I did a lot of VGC content last year going into 2016, kind of tailed off near the end. The format kind of got a little stale with me, obviously, with everybody else, but VGC 17 is now here, and it's really fun, and, you know, it's one of those things I kind of wanted to start getting into, going over some stuff. So right now, just for starters, we're just going to get into some different Pokemon and kind of go through that and see their competitive use and all that kind of good stuff. So today we got one of my favorite Pokemon. We've got Muck here. You know, Muck's always been one of my favorite Pokemon back since Gen 1. Honestly, since that episode of Pokemon where Ash caught that Muck. But then, here comes Sun and Moon, Muck gets an Alolan form, and I think Muck is probably one of the better Alolan forms next to like Alolan Marowak. That's actually like super usable. Kind of going from the change, Muck got an additional typing. Now he's Dark type as well as his Poison type, which gives him a lot of different offensive things to use, which is really cool. And I think his it's just his appearance is really cool, especially like the Alolan Muck with the rainbow stuff and the crystal stuff. That's really cool. So we'll kind of get into Muck. Muck's one of those that when this, when he originally got announced, is one of those Pokemon I instantly looked at and was like, that's one of those I really want to see, because I think it could have some potential. So we'll kind of look into its moveset, look into some things it gets that are pretty cool. First and foremost, one of the things that Muck gets that kind of sets it apart from a lot of different Pokemon, it naturally gets access to Knockoff. And Knockoff is one of the really good moves you can use in VGC. And Muck is probably the best user, in my opinion, right now of Knockoff. Not only is it a stab move, but Muck has good offensive potential as is, so it's always good to have. So moving on, Muck also gets, he can also use some different things. He's got Minimize, you know, it's one of those things you could potentially use. He gets Disable, which is pretty cool. Crunch is something he learns, which is again really cool, and definitely usable. Something else he gets here, let me see, we can find it. Poison Jab, a super strong, well, the strongest accurate physical attack on the Poison type. I mean, it's only 80 base power, but with Muck being stabbed, you know, he gets that little boost, and it also has a chance to poison, which is really cool. So things like Knockoff and Poison Jab and Crunch are kind of Muck's go-to attacks. Another thing that Muck gets I think is really cool, here going into the egg moves. So first up we get Shadow Sneak, which is a really cool little coverage type attack. You know, you'll move first as priority, which to be fair you have to pay attention to that with all the Tapus running around. But also what he gets, and one of the ones that I'm super interested in with Muck, is Stockpile. So Stockpile is one of those moves, it's, you know, it's always been around, but it's one of those moves, what it does is, it takes a turn, and whoever uses it raises the defense and special defense up by a stage, which Muck in and of itself is already super bulky, so it just increases that. So let's see if we can go down here to his stats. So we're just looking at here at Alolan Muck. So as you can see, just kinda, his stats really have not changed at all. He's a, you know, base stat 500, HP is 105, attack's 105, defense is 75, special attack is 65, special defense is 100, and speed is 50. So all around, he's relatively bulky, decently high HP, decently high special defense. His one lower area is right here is in defense, but it's not awful, and we can kind of account for that with different things. And then his attack is 105, which is not horrible. So it's something to keep in mind. So we'll get into just a few different sets I have here for Muck. Some different things. So first up, this is more just your physically offensive Muck. This is one I don't necessarily recommend. It's the easiest Muck to build, but just for different things, I'm not super recommending it. So this Muck would have just a basic 252 HP and attack to kind of maximize those areas, with a little extra in special defense or defense, however you want to go. He's already pretty special defensively bulky, so we might just go ahead and keep that going, with an adamant nature to keep his attack going up. And so we're running Knockoff, Poison Jab, Protect, and Crunch. Like I said, we're just trying to go as physical as possible. For his item, we have a Figgy Berry. Figgy Berry is one of those items, it synergizes super well with Muck. For those of y'all that want to see what it does, so Figgy Berry, it restores half max HP at 1/4 HP or less. And then there's a little bit of a change to these coming into Sun and Moon. These berries are dependent on your nature. So like with Figgy Berry, if you're running in a nature that gives you a negative attack stat, it'll confuse you as well. So working with Muck, who's already physically, you're never gonna lower his physical attack stat, so it's always something good to use. I went ahead and went with Poison Touch on this one. You can kind of mix it up. Poison Touch was just kind of the one I went with this. Kind of help our math a little bit if we can get the extra poison with the knockoff and things like that. And then next up, we've got this Muck here, which this is the Muck that I currently am using, and it's my preferred Muck. He's a little bit well-rounded. So we went ahead and gave him 252 on HP, just kind of maximize that stat out. We only went 52 into attack because we're not necessarily worrying about one-shotting a lot of things. Some things we're still going to be able to one-shot, but a lot of things we're going to two-shot anyway. So we just went ahead and just gave him a little bit of a bump in attack. We went 100 in defense, and then 100 in special defense, and then just threw 4 at speed because we had the 4 extra. And then we went with the Impish nature to increase his defense and lower his special attack. Again, this is just kind of a well-rounded Muck. He's going to be super bulky. Muck's already relatively bulky, so we just increase that bulk. Make sure he can stick around for a while. He can be kind of tanky, and things like that. For his attacks, we went with Knockoff, Stockpile, which like I said earlier is something I'm really interested in, especially with Muck. Poison Jab, and then Protect, just to keep Muck around a little bit while. We went ahead and continued with the Figgy Berry, because I think that's probably the best item for Muck. And then we gave him the Power of Alchemy ability, which I'm not sure if this ability is only on Muck, but it is Muck's hidden ability. And basically what it does, whenever one of Muck's allies gets knocked out, Muck copies that ability, whatever the ability of that Pokemon was. So if it's an Intimidate, Muck gets Intimidate, so you get another Intimidate off. Or if it's like a Terrain or something like that, Muck gains that Terrain. So it's kind of cool to use. It's kind of circumstantial. You gotta be kind of careful with it. Depending on the Pokemon that you're teamed up with and when they get knocked out. If you can time it right, you can obviously get a really good ability out of that. But so yeah, so let's move into some calcs a little bit. Just kind of give an example of what Muck can do, what Muck can stand up against. So first up, so obviously Muck is going to be weak to things like ground, and one of the big common ground users is Garchomp. So right here, we're looking at the physically defensive, or the defensive Muck set that I put up, the 252 HP, 100 defense, 100 special defense. So in this, let's fix that. When you're going up against a Garchomp, there's not honestly a lot of offensive pressure you can do to Garchomp. Obviously, you can knock off, which is always good. Poison Jab, it's not great. But you can stick around a little bit because Earthquake, Garchomp's go-to attack, with our Figgy Berry, is a guaranteed 3-hit KO on your standard Garchomp. That's prioritizes speed a little bit over attack. And then if we look at something like after dropping a Stockpile, which increases our defense and our special defense +1, that Earthquake becomes a 4-hit KO. And then usually one of the partners, which we'll get into in a little bit, that you always want to partner with a Garchomp, or a Muck, excuse me, is an Intimidate user, whether that be Salamence or Gyarados or something like that. Just because of all of Muck's stats, defense is where he's a little bit lower, so it's usually good to pair him with an Intimidate user. So if we go ahead and throw that Intimidate on there as well, that Earthquake's going to be a 5-hit KO after Stockpile. Let's see, before Stockpile is still going to be a 4-hit KO with our Figgy Berry. So that's really cool stuff to pay attention to. And that's just, again, just looking at Garchomp. And then if we take into like Rock Slide's going to be like a 9-hit KO after Intimidate. Dragon Claw, 5-hit KO. Poison Jab, which a lot of Garchomps are running. It's not even going to do anything, which they're probably not going to use it anyway, but just to illustrate that. And if we go back and look before the Intimidate, so Rock Slide's still a 6-hit KO, Dragon Claw is a 9, almost 10% chance to 4-hit KO. And again, Earthquake is a 3-hit KO, which is kind of the big thing to pay attention to. Alright, so, obviously one of the good things about Muck is his poison typing. Because we have a lot of the Tapus floating around and things like that. So if we're just gonna go, and we're gonna go look at, like, Tapu Lele, let's see. And again, all this stuff is kind of just circumstantial, because we don't know how the meta is exactly at the moment. So we're just gonna be looking at just kind of your standard, super offensive Tapu Lele. So with Poison Jab, and this is just with the Muck that only has 52 investment, Poison Jab is still going to 2-hit. So even if we were to bump that up to 252, Poison Jab is still a guaranteed 2-hit. So that's why I didn't really emphasize going crazy into the special defense or the attack stat. Just because majority of the time we're going to be 2-shotting anyway, so we can keep it even with that just 52 there. And we can use that to invest into other stats. Excuse me. But anyway, looking into the Tapu Lele attacking to us. Okay, so obviously Psychic is not going to do anything because we're immune to that. Moonblast is a guaranteed 4-shot after the Figgy Berry. Dazzling Gleam, guaranteed 5-hit after the Figgy Berry. And Energy Ball, if they happen to be running Energy Ball, is an 8-shot. The only thing I did not calculate on here would be if he was running a Z move, but generally the Z move that they run is the Psychium Z, sort of the Shattered Psyche, which we're immune to that anyway, so it's not relevant. But again, we're always going to be 2-shotting that, and that's only with 52 investment, so that's something to keep in mind. And then if we look after something like a Stockpile, that Moonblast is a 5-hit after the Figgy Berry, Dazzling Gleam 6-hit, Energy Ball, possibly the worst move ever. So, moving on from that. The difference would be if you're going against a Tapu Bulu, which Tapu Bulu, being Grass type, is already weak to our Poison type. So, it's something to keep in mind. That Poison Jab, even at 52, generally is going to get a 1-shot on majority of Tapu Bulus. And again, this depends on how Tapu Bulus are stat-wise, but this is a max HP Tapu Bulu, and it's still a guaranteed 1-shot. Now, Tapu Bulu going back into us, you know, their Woodhammer is a 97.2% chance to 4-hit KO after Grassy Terrain and the Figgy Berry. Horn Leech is a 5-hit KO after the Terrain and the Berry. Superpower is a 4-hit KO, and then Stone Edge is a 5-hit KO after the Terrain and the Berry. So none of the Tapus are really going to be doing a lot of damage to us. So then we'll move on into Tapu Koko. Tapu Koko is another one. Not super certain on where it's going to be sitting right now. This will be looking at a special Tapu Koko, but kind of the same thing. We're still 2-shotting it, so we don't really have much to worry about. Thunderbolt's going to be a 3-hit KO after Figgy Berry. Dazzling Gleam, 5-hit KO. Hidden Power, 6-hit KO. Discharge, 4-hit KO. 60% chance at a 4-hit KO after the Figgy Berry. So again, this is always things to keep consider. We're always going to be 2-shotting all the Tapus with the exception of Tapu Bulu, which we should be able to 1-shot. The next one we'll look up against is for Alolan Marowak, because that is one that is everywhere. It's one of the best Pokemon right now. So, it's always something to keep in mind. Against Alolan Marowak, knockoff generally is where we're going to go initially, because we want to get rid of that Thick Club. That Thick Club is something that's going to cause us problems. Naturally, we outspeed Alolan Marowak, because generally you're not going to see a lot of speed investment. So we're able to get that knockoff and get rid of that Thick Club before they can start hitting us, put us in a pretty good spot. So under the assumption that we can't get there first, Flare Blitz is a 2-hit KO after the Figgy Berry recovery. Shadow Bone, 5-hit KO. Bone Meringue is a 2-hit KO, which that's the one that's going to hit us super effectively, so that's the one you have to watch out for always. And then depending on what else they're running, just kind of go from there. Now if we get the Intimidate off, Flare Blitz is a 3-hit KO, Shadow Bone 5-hit KO, Boomerang is a 3-hit KO, which is pretty relevant, and then just kind of goes from there. And then if we can get rid of the Thick Club, Flare Blitz is a 4-hit KO, Shadow Bone 7-hit KO, Boomerang about a 50-50 3-hit KO, and then kind of go from there. So you can just kind of see that we are always going to be able to hit pretty well. Take Marowak on pretty well, and then Knockoff, even without the item, is still going to be a 25.5% chance to 2-shot. So after you get the first 2-shot, or first knockoff, and then the second knockoff, hopefully by that point you can get like a poison or something like that onto him to get that item taken off. So that, again, and that's just looking at just the 52 investment. If we were to look into, let's see, a max attack, a max attack Muck knockoff is still going to be a 2-shot. Again, so it's one of those we don't necessarily really want to worry about. It's going to be 2-shot with max attack or with only 52 attack investment. So again, definitely some things to keep in mind. Now if we go back and we're looking at just some common partners, things to pair with Muck, Salamence is always good, just because Salamence gets Intimidate. They can kind of work off of each other, where Salamence is weak to Fairy and things like that. Muck is super effective against Fairy. Where Muck is weak to Ground, Salamence is immune to Ground, so they kind of got those working off of each other. Additionally, you've got things like Gyarados. It's also something that comes with Intimidate. It's always good to have, just to kind of help Muck stay around a little bit longer. They don't synergize as well as like a Salamence and a Muck do, but just having that Intimidate's always good. And another Pokemon that works kind of well having a Muck is something like a Tapu Lele. Just because Tapu Lele is going to come in, hit hard, hit fast, and Muck can kind of come in and clean up after it and kind of take care of some stuff. Some problems to look out for when you're using Muck. Cresselia is kind of running around, or not Cresselia, Celesteela is running around a lot. You don't necessarily have a bad matchup with the Celesteela, you just can't do a lot of damage to Celesteela. He's immune to your poison jab and things like that. Knockoff is usually good to get that first knockoff off and get rid of like leftovers or whatever it's running. And then after that, you're doing significantly less damage. But you can't poison it, so it's immune to a lot of your stuff. Being that you're so bulky, you don't have a lot of problems, but you kind of get drawn to those little stalemates with things like that. So yeah, that is Muck. Again, just kind of looking into it at the moment, but let me know what y'all think about Muck. Let me know what other Pokemon y'all would want me to profile. I'll start getting in a couple of these videos a couple different times a week, and then as I'm working into getting into the VGC ladder, we'll start getting into that. But that is it, guys, so I will see y'all next time.